instead of our introductions. We're going to do those on the next slide, but we're going to start things off by just getting you to kind of start to think a little bit about UDL in the context of these 4 different learner personas that we created. So these are not real people on campus, but I guarantee you they represent a type of learner that we likely see here at Utah Tech. So we have Maria, Alex, Sarah, and Jacob. We're going to give you 90 seconds to think about these 2 questions, and you can either answer one or both. But what I'm going to have you do is type your answer in the Zoom chat, but don't press enter. We're going to do like a waterfall thing. So after that 90 seconds, I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, and we're all going to press enter at the same time. So it'll be really cool because everyone's responses will populate in the chat at the same time. So again, you have 90 seconds. You can choose one or both prompts to answer, and then we'll share. But don't press enter until I tell you to. And I can't really tell if anyone's joining the Zoom late, but if you did just join, what we're doing is we're taking the time to consider these 4 different learners, and you're just thinking about one or both of those question prompts at the top of the page and typing your answer in the Zoom chat, but don't press enter just yet. We're going to do that in about 30 seconds. All right, so that's time. So now let's see how well we can do the waterfall thing. I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, and then on go, everyone's going to press enter at the same. Oh, Diana, she's already failed. You failed me already. Okay, let's see if everyone else can follow instructions. All right, ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Nice. Okay. So a couple of these, Diana, she was very early to get hers out, a variety of assessment or skill building opportunities. Spanish version, I really like that. Engaging content, audio version of text to speech, that was from Kevin. Let's see some other ones. Some main issues, accessibility issues, solutions, plain language, multimodal information presentation, high contrast. This is all really great stuff. Concise wording in Canvas. I think that's so important, Terry, like making it clear and easy for students to know exactly what it is you're communicating to them. So we're going to talk about all of this a little bit more, but now that we've done a warm-up activity, hopefully we've captured your attention a little bit more. Now we'll introduce ourselves.
So we are doing our workshop on Universal Design for Learning. I'm Meg Swanson.
And I'm Katy Houghton.
And we are learning designers with Utah Tech Online.
So as we've kind of already said, the purpose of today's workshop is to enhance the quality of education for all learners. And we're going to do that today by giving you some practical steps, some resources, and some really basic guidance to get started with UDL in your courses.
Okay, so what is UDL? UDL is a set of principles that make it so that you are designing your course for all learners. And it makes it so that your course is automatically accessible. It's inclusive because you've already thought of those things from the start.
And so for those of you that don't know much about UDL, there are 3 main principles: multiple means of representation, engagement, and expression. So with multiple means of representation, what we're talking about is offering your content in diverse formats. So if I am creating a Canvas page about the rock cycle, I might want to include a picture, a video, and then a text description of the rock cycle for my learners. For engagement, it's really important that you consider all of your learners, diverse interests, diverse backgrounds, especially being an open enrollment university. And then multiple means of expression. So this is how you're having students demonstrate mastery. And I would encourage you to consider offering variety in assessment methods, whether it be written, presentations, projects, and that helps you accommodate different strengths and abilities for all of your learners.
So some of the benefits from UDL, we really appreciate, being legally compliant. It's just, a little bit important. It does help a lot of our students to be more successful as they're going through and to be able to have that even platform as they're trying to go about and become more successful in their lives and achieve academically. It also helps you in the way that you don't have to backtrack if you've designed with all of your students from the start. You don't have to go back and make something readable with a screen reader. You don't have to go back and, adjust the contrast. You don't have to go back and do all of these different things, add captions to your videos. You don't have to do these things because you thought of them when you were choosing your tools, when you were doing all of these things in the first place.
So now we're going to talk about some basic guidelines for getting started with UDL in an online course, and we're going to do that as we consider our learners from that warm-up activity. So we're going to start with Alex. If we remember, he is a student athlete. He's taking the online course for flexibility reasons. However, he does struggle with ADHD. So in this, hypothetical scenario, he took an online course last semester and he was completely lost. He didn't really know how to actually get started and therefore spent more time trying to navigate the Canvas course versus actually learning the content. So Meg's going to talk a little bit more about some guidelines for helping a student like Alex.
So we're going to talk about different ways that we can format Canvas so that it is easier for students to go ahead and get started and understand what the expectations are from the start just by looking at what the page is. So first we're going to talk about the homepage. And the homepage should have a clear way for them to get started. This getting started button should lead them into your expectations, the first module, whatever it is you want them to start with. Sorry, I'm in a room where the light goes off every about 5 minutes without motion. But providing this link makes it so that the student is able to know, okay, I go here and I'm going to understand what the expectation is for me from the start. They don't have to, if we want to switch to the next slide, go down into the left-hand navigation wondering where they start. There are so many links if you look at the one on the left that it can end up confusing for the students. We're going to turn the light back on. And by having all of these additional buttons, it's rather extraneous for them, extraneous load, just going into it and going, okay, well, do I click on assignments or quizzes or discussions? And it makes it much clearer for the students when they can look at an example like on the right side, where they only have access to the syllabus and to the modules and things like that. And if we look over on the far right, we've got these resources for you guys. So when we share out the slideshow, you'll be able to go in and see these step-by-step instructions. If you want to switch. Okay, so looking at the modules have different tools that you can use. You can indent things, you can use text headers to help go in and highlight what these different pages are that you're creating in the Canvas module, making it easier for the students to know, okay, this is a page where I'm going to learn the content. This is one where I'm doing assignments. These are the things I have to do. Like it says tasks. This is what I need to do this week. And it leaves very little to the imagination or up for interpretation and makes it very easy for someone like Alex to just jump in. And within that same kind of sphere, you want to have some kind of either naming structure or numbering structure, something that'll make it clear what those things are, whether it's, including quiz as part of the name or including, it's 1.2. So just in case, they're looking at a page and they're not sure where they're at, and they can refer to it easily, whether that's in conversations with you, in conversations with other students, or whether you want to refer to it in an introductory video for the module. It makes it so that it's easier for the students to be able to see and understand what you're doing, what the expectation is, and what the flow is of that module. And so now we're going to talk about Maria. Maria is a non-traditional student. She's a little bit older, and English is not her first language. She has very limited proficiency in English, and so she prefers to learn things, with visual representations that will help to guide her as she's reading things in her less than familiar language. And Katie is going to talk to us more about that.
So as we think about Maria, I want to talk about UDL in your assessments. And so when you're thinking about your assessments, one of the first things that I would always encourage you to do is use backward design. So begin with the end in mind. What are your course learning outcomes, and do the assessments that you plan to use clearly align with that? If you're building using backwards design, you're going to accomplish this inherently. So also make sure your assessments are actually assessing what you're intending them to assess. I was a middle school science teacher for many years, and during my student teaching, I had a really eye-opening experience that I still think about today, and probably more so as a learning designer than any other time. So in this situation, students were assigned a task. They were supposed to write a paragraph about riding a roller coaster. And the point was that they could write a paragraph that had a really good introduction and a closing. So it was, just write a paragraph about a roller coaster. And I was working with this student who also had limited English proficiency. And, he was normally really super chill. We got along, but he was getting noticeably frustrated that day and just, was like, no, I can't do this. I can't do it. And I'm like, oh, yes, you can. And I was trying to build up his confidence. And then finally he looks at me and is like, no, I can't. I've never ridden a roller coaster. And so it dawned on me that in this case, this assessment that was really meant to just, can you write a paragraph? It was actually limiting him because there was a roadblock in his way. He didn't have this experience that maybe we assume everyone has had. And so just ask yourself, is there any part of my assessment that is limiting a student being able to, show mastery of my course learning outcomes simply because they don't have an experience? Maybe they come from a low socioeconomic status. Maybe they grew up on a reservation or in a different country. So just really consider those things in your assessment design. I would also encourage you to include diverse assessment methods. So this goes back to that multiple means of representation at the beginning of our workshop. So in this assessment here, we opted to do a confirmation bias survival guide. So we wanted students to, show that they know what confirmation bias is and how to overcome it. And rather than having students just create a flyer, we gave them options. They could either do a podcast or a video or a Twitter campaign. And our hopes was that people who aren't necessarily consider themselves super creative or they don't want to be in front of the camera, they would have some other options here. And a little bit more about assessments, make sure that your instructions and your expectations are really clear and concise. As instructors, we tend to think that everything is important and we want to over-explain it to you because if we over-explain it, you're definitely going to understand it. But what happens is you have then lost your students by so much content on your page. So be mindful of bolding, be mindful of using red text or highlighting, because at that point you've lost them. They don't even know what's important anymore. I would also say include student examples or models to communicate your expectations when that's possible or relevant. This right here is an assessment that came from the mind of ChatGPT, and it went very weird on me. This was supposed to just be about rock types, but it went all cryptic and grimoires and ancient books of knowledge. And while I really do like an out-of-the-box assessment, a student like Maria is going to be like, what the heck are you even talking about? Because it's not clear that this is an out-of-the-box, use your imagination type assessment. If you want to do something weird, I would say include an instructor video where you're kind of explaining the context and hey, I want you to pretend for a little bit. But again, you've got to make it clear and you've got to set those expectations. All right, so next learner, we've got Jacob. And if you remember, he's also a little bit older. So he works full-time, he's a dad. He also has a hearing impairment. So audio content and instructor videos can sometimes be a roadblock for him. So Meg is going to talk a little bit more about ways we could help a student like Jacob.
So you really want to consider what tools and resources you're using. You want to make sure that you're making sure that these tools are accessible and that any media you have is inclusive, things like that, so that you already have those tools that you need, those features of those tools, I should say, that will allow you to engage with every individual in your course. Like for Jake, you want to make sure that the videos you include have captions, things like that. And it's pretty safe to assume that everything is going to allow you to do that, but you want to keep those kinds of things in mind when you're researching new tools or different tools to use in your classroom. And so we have this example on Canvas for you that Katie's going to drop the link in the chat, and then we're going to go over to it on the shared screen. And we want you to kind of look at it, see what you find where the design or the choices are probably not the best. There are going to be limitations for different students, perhaps for different reasons. And you can either unmute and share out loud, or you can share it in the Zoom chat. But we want to hear what you see.
And for those of us who have a visual impairment, could you zoom in a little bit, Katie?
Of course, yeah.
Thanks.
What, 175, is that good?
That works for me.
Okay, and I also dropped the link in the chat for anyone who would rather navigate the page on their own, but I'll kind of just like slowly scroll. And Carrie did say, I see a broken image, and I did do that on purpose, by the way. I broke that image on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually, something isn't loading right. There we go.
Here's the video.
There we go.
So, those who have low internet bandwidth might have an issue with that.
That's true. It wasn't done on purpose, but that's a good point.
Yeah.
Anything else you guys notice? I'll kind of scroll down a little bit more. Think about maybe that video, some of the extra resources that we've provided. A link to the video would help, absolutely. Is there caption for the video? Let me mute it and
Welcome to Moon Math
actually,
Science.
there is
This
no
video,
caption.
Let's take a look at some igneous rocks.
It's a good catch.
I like having a caption underneath or some wording in advance of a video saying, here's a video that you're going to watch and take note about it, or, what is this video about?
Yeah, some context, right? Pictures of the rocks would help a lot, definitely.
Yeah.
The link could be shortened. All right, are you talking about this one right here, Kevin? Yeah. Okay.
Oh.
I can hear him because he's in the same room with me, but he actually didn't unmute. Does anyone know why it's important that whenever you do include a link in your course, not to do this? This is a bad example. Screen readers, yes, and we have a really good example on a couple slides down the line here where a screen reader will literally read this like verbatim, HTTPS : like the whole thing. All right, this one's a little hidden, but read this article to learn more about metamorphic rocks. I used to see this a lot more than I do now, but right here, this is a text resource that was uploaded as a PNG file. And so as someone with a screen reader, they're not going to be able to get through any of this content whatsoever. Let me go back to, where are we? Sorry, guys. There we are. Okay. Meg, do you want to go on to the next slide?
Yep.
Okay.
We just have some recommendations. some of those things that we've talked about. Make sure that your images have alt text, make sure that your videos have captions. Make sure that your heading structure is good, whether you're in Canvas or in PDFs or Word or Google Docs. That's what those heading 1, heading 2, heading 3s are for. It makes it so that screen readers can jump around, which is particularly helpful when you're not reading on the first time through, or you don't need to read the whole document. And so those things are very important. Not including things like images or things that you need to read. I actually did have a teacher who would upload scanned documents, not put through an OCR, and my reading comprehension is very low because I am visually impaired. And so I needed to be able to read them faster. With PDFs, I prefer to be able to use a screen reader, but I had to go ahead and put probably a few 100 pages over the course of a semester through an OCR so that I could actually understand what the teacher was trying to convey. Okay, if you want to go to the next slide. Okay, so here's our screen reader examples. So some of them are good examples, some are not. The headings, like I said, it helps students who use screen readers to be able to jump around. It helps with the organization of the Canvas page as well, keeping it consistent, but it is primarily for those screen readers. So if you want to play that one.
Nick,
Yes.
will you, somebody who's asking what a screen reader is. Will you describe what a screen reader is?
So a screen reader is a piece of software. I have access to JAWS, and I do believe that is probably the most common one. But for those with visual impairments, it will go ahead and read your screen for you. Some of them will, well, actually, yeah, you just navigate the screen generally through the use of arrows and tabs and a variety of shortcuts. For these examples, I just hit the down key and read through the entire page, and we took snippets of what we were doing, what we saw on this page. This is the Canvas page that we saw a couple pages ago. So it's just a way for, you know, those who are visually impaired to be able to navigate a very structured world.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and play that one for the headings for you, Meg.
Okay.
Level 2 Learn 1.1: What are the 3 types of rocks? Welcome to our instructional page on the 3 fundamental types.
I think the beginning may have got cut off, but
Yeah.
it does say heading level 1 before it started.
And then it says heading level 2 on the next line. So it's, you know, it allows those students to be able to skip forward if they already know, you know, the welcome part and they need to rehear that part about sedimentary rocks. And then we skip down to the image, and this is kind of the importance of having alt text. So this is what it will read when you're going through and hearing about an image if you don't rename it.
Let's delve into each type and explore their unique characteristics. Image.png graphic.
Image.png. Canvas tends to like to put in the name of that image as the description, and then the accessibility report, which Katy will talk about in a couple minutes, goes ahead and flags that as not being a good description, but keeping in mind. Yes.
Sorry, I just have a quick question about alt text.
Okay.
If I have a transcript for the image down below, is it good to put that in the alt text? Or do I just ignore that? Because like for alt text, like for example, I made some infographics for a class, but I also below it put a transcript. And so would it be helpful for a student if I put alt text, you know, infographic 1 transcript below? Or if it just says like infographic 1?
I would not just write infographic. I would either describe it up there as well, or I'd say description follows the infographic.
Okay.
I'm gonna try to get my light back on.
The
Let's see.
bulleted list.
Huh?
The bulleted list is next, and
Yes,
then
the
the link.
bulleted list. So having things, I have seen people who like to make it so that things that should probably be in a list are just separate paragraphs. And this is an example of why I think bulleted lists are a really good idea, especially for those who would use a screen reader.
Characteristics : list of 3 items. Bullet origin : formed from cooling and solidification of molten material. Bullet texture : can be fine - grain left paren, rapid cooling right paren, or coarse - grain left paren, slow cooling right paren.
And I'll stop it there. It just goes
It
through the
says
third
end
bullet
of
point.
list.
Yeah.
But having it so that it says this is a list is very helpful. It makes it so that you're not just, and this thing, and that thing, and this thing, that should all be their own things within that list. And then we have our final one, which is the link that someone mentioned on that last page.
Read this article to learn more about sedimentary rocks : link https://www.usgs.gov/faqs/what-r-sedimentary-rocks number : text equals common %27.
I think you guys get the point though, right?
Yeah, by the end of that, when I would encounter it in my classes, I always forgot what I was actually doing with the link, like other than following it. But whether I was just supposed to read, whether I was supposed to analyze, whether I was supposed to write something afterward, I generally forgot what it was because those things are just so long that I would have to go back and check and see what I was doing before I got to go to the next page. Want to move on?
So what would you have said instead, Meg? So for someone with a visual impairment, what should we as instructors put for links?
Put the link where it says read this article.
Okay.
Yeah, there's I went back to that slide about utilize tools and resources carefully. And so it's the 1, 2, 3, 4th bullet down. There's an example of a good link. So as opposed to like click here, which I'm so guilty of doing, or click here for more information, using what it is they can expect to find at that link. So an example of a good link, if I clicked that, I would expect to go to a good link, is much more helpful.
Yeah, there are ways for screen readers to skip around just looking for the links. So when it just says link, it doesn't describe what it is you're linking to. Okay, so speaking of visual impairments, we next have Sarah, who does use a screen reader, and Katie's going to tell us a little bit about her.
All right, so with a student like Sarah, we obviously want to make sure our course is accessible, and actually with all of our students. And I think one tool that we have in Canvas that I'm not sure everyone is aware of is the built-in accessibility checker. And you can turn this on. You just have to navigate to settings and follow some steps. And I've provided a visual guide in this link on the slide. So when you guys get access to this resource later, this will walk you through turning on the accessibility checker. So right now in my sandbox course, you can see it's 83% accessible. And this is the report that Canvas generates for you. I kind of skipped that part. So it's 83% accessible. And then it gives you some options. It says content with the easiest issues to fix low storing content. I usually start with the easiest because, it's easiest. And when you click on that start button, it takes you to a page that looks like this. So here we have a list of images in my sandbox course that are not accessible. And so I would just simply click on one of those, and it's going to take me to a page that looks like this, which is helpful because now I have the picture. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I can see that. I know that it's missing that alt text description. And then in that box where it says add right here, I can write my image description, or there's an option to indicate if this image is decorative. Would you guys say this is an image that's decorative? No, yeah, it's definitely not. Now, if this were a picture of someone's hands at a keyboard, that's not providing any instructional value. That would be decorative. This, however, has quite a bit of content in it, so a really good image description would be appropriate here. And again, that step-by-step guide will show you how to turn on that accessibility checker in Canvas. So we are nearing the end. This quote right here is actually something that I came across whenever Meg and I were looking into what we wanted to include in our UDL workshop, and it just really resonated with me. So I'm just going to read it to you really quick. When asked if any of our students had disabilities, we were proud to say that we did not know. Why? Because no one needed to disclose a disability since all the course materials and teaching methods were accessibly designed. And so this just stood out to me because especially as learning designers, we're building all of this content before it even pilots, before it launches to our students. We can't pivot easily. So making sure your course is accessible before it gets to your students is going to save you so much headache and time, and honestly, headache and time for your students as well. So with that in mind, that is the end. Do you guys have any questions? I'm sorry we went over by 3 minutes. I will give you all $3. Just kidding. No, I won't.
While people are thinking of their questions, I did post in the chat that if anyone wants one-on-one consultation or assistance with their online course regarding universal design for learning or accessibility issues to help improve the student experience, they can contact their UT Online Learning Designer, and I provided a link there.
I'm a little sad that there's not a single question.
I mean, we did get one.
I
or
already
two
asked
minutes,
mine.
so.
Make up another one, Carrie. Come on, humor me. Feed my ego.
Well, Meg, I really appreciated you sharing your experience. Now you're an employee with a vision impairment, but as you look at your student experience, and you've had student experience with all through school, high school, college, master's degree, what would you say helped you the most through your coursework?
So I actually didn't have this until about the last 10 years. So I only have a little bit of undergrad and my master's with this impairment.
And what helped you the most that an instructor can do to assist and help you navigate your courses easily?
So like I mentioned, the OCR was a big thing. And having those assessments where you are truly assessing what you're attempting to assess. An example that I've talked to Katy about a couple of times is the stats class that I took in my master's program. And for some reason, they really liked having timed tests. Every single one of their tests was timed. And there really wasn't a reason for it, but they refused to remove it because everyone will have all of that information memorized by the time it comes to the test. So why bother? Well, why bother timing it? That's not how things work in the real world. So just, making sure that you're assessing what you think you're assessing and not someone's ability to, find the information quickly or read the information quickly, even in my case, because sometimes it was a matter of, because I zoom in on the screen, okay, can I scroll over fast enough? Can I read and comprehend the question fast enough that I can get through all of the questions, even not even working out the math part of it before that time runs out?
That's helpful. So giving you extra time just to navigate the screen.
Yeah, so just like removing impediments that don't need to be there.
Thank you.
The world does not really operate on a timed test kind of basis.
Thank you.
All right. Well, it doesn't seem like there's any other questions, and I'd hate to hold you guys over, but if you have any more questions, our learning design team at UT Online is always happy to help you, whether it be with accessibility or course design or just support with an online course. So feel free to reach out to us.
Yep.
All right. Well, have a good Friday, guys. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Terry.